The massive space station hung in the darkness like a giant metal flower. Its silver petals stretched out in all directions, each one bigger than most cities on Earth. This was the Galactic Council's home, where the most powerful species in the galaxy made their decisions. Kim Tae-ho stepped off the human transport ship and looked around. The docking bay was huge, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadows. Alien workers moved cargo with machines that floated through the air. Strange smells filled his nose, some sweet, some bitter, all unfamiliar. Tae-ho was not a tall man. His black hair was starting to turn gray at the sides. He wore a simple dark suit and carried an old leather briefcase. Anyone looking at him would think he was just another boring government worker. "Sir, are you ready?" asked Park Hye-jin. She was his assistant, a young woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. She carried a tablet computer and stayed close to Tae-ho at all times. "Yes," Tae-ho said quietly. His voice was soft and calm. "Let's go meet our hosts." Lee Dong-woo walked beside them. He was their security officer, though he only carried a small weapon on his belt. The aliens had rules about weapons on their station. Lee looked nervous. His eyes moved back and forth, watching everything. Behind them came Choi Min-ho, their translator. He was the youngest of the group, barely 25 years old. This was his first time away from Earth. His mouth hung open as he stared at the aliens around them. They walked through wide hallways filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some had fur, some had scales. Others looked like walking trees. A few looked almost human, but with strange colored skin or extra arms. Most ignored the human visitors completely. "Remember," Tae-ho said to his team, "we are here to talk, not to fight. Earth wants to join the Galactic Trade Union. We need their approval to trade with other worlds." They reached the main council chamber. The room was enormous, shaped like a bowl. Seats rose up in circles, getting higher and higher. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in those seats, talking in dozens of different languages. At the center of the room was a small platform. This was where visitors had to stand when they spoke to the council. Tae-ho walked down the steps slowly, his shoes clicking on the metal floor. "Humans!" called a loud voice. The speaker was Grixtal, the Vorthak Prime. He was twice as tall as Tae-ho, with gray skin and 4 arms. His face had too many teeth. "You finally came to ask for permission to play with the big species." Many aliens laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. Tae-ho smiled politely. "Thank you for meeting with us, Prime Grixtal. Earth is honored by your attention." Another alien stood up. This was Veltara, from the Zephyrian Empire. She looked almost human, but her skin was blue and her eyes were pure black. "Humans want to trade with us," she said in a sweet voice that somehow sounded dangerous. "But what can your little world offer?" "Earth produces food," Tae-ho explained. "We have developed new ways to grow crops that could feed billions. We also have mining rights to asteroids rich in rare metals." "Food?" laughed a third alien. This was Zornith from the Thraxian kingdom. He had 6 legs and looked like a giant insect. "We can make food in our laboratories. We don't need dirty farming." More laughter filled the chamber. Some aliens made rude gestures with their various appendages. Tae-ho's smile never changed. "Of course, we understand if our offerings don't interest you. We simply hoped for the chance to prove ourselves useful." "Useful?" Grixtal leaned forward. "Humans are weak. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. Why should we treat you as equals?" Park Hye-jin stepped forward. "Sir, perhaps we should explain our military capabilities." "No need," Tae-ho said gently, raising his hand. She stopped talking immediately. "We didn't come here to make threats." Veltara smiled, showing sharp white teeth. "Smart human. You know your place." Choi Min-ho whispered to Lee Dong-woo. "Are they always this rude?" Lee shrugged. "Welcome to galactic politics, kid." The meeting continued for hours. The aliens made demands that grew more unreasonable by the minute. They wanted Earth to give up all military ships. They wanted humans to accept alien overseers for all trade deals. They wanted Earth to pay taxes to the Galactic Council before even joining it. Tae-ho listened to everything calmly. He took notes in a small book with a pen that looked ancient compared to the holographic displays around them. Sometimes he asked quiet questions. He never raised his voice or showed anger. "These are our terms," Grixtal finally announced. "Accept them or go home to your little world and stay there forever." "I understand," Tae-ho said. "These are serious matters. My government will need time to consider your generous offer." "One day," Veltara said firmly. "You have 1 day to decide. Tomorrow we meet again. Accept our terms or face the consequences." Council session ended. Aliens began filing out of the chamber, talking loudly among themselves. Many pointed at the humans and laughed. Tae-ho packed his notes into the old briefcase. His movements were careful and precise. Park Hee-jin noticed that his hands were very steady. She had seen nervous diplomats before. They always shook a little during big meetings, but Tae-ho seemed completely calm. "Sir," she said quietly, "those terms are impossible. Earth will never agree to give up our defense fleet." "I know," Tae-ho replied. His voice was still soft, but something in his tone made her shiver. They walked back to their guest quarters in silence. The hallways seemed darker now, and the alien workers watched them with unfriendly eyes. Word was spreading fast. The humans had been put in their place. Lee Dongwoo checked their rooms for listening devices while Choi Min-ho collapsed into a chair. "That was horrible," the young translator said. "They treated us like insects." "They treated us like what they think we are," Tae-ho corrected. He set his briefcase on the table and stared at it for a long moment. Park Hee-jin sat down across from him. "What do we do now, sir? Those terms are designed to make us refuse. They want us to leave angry so they can justify keeping Earth isolated." Tae-ho opened the briefcase. Inside were the usual diplomatic papers, but Park Hee-jin glimpsed something else underneath. Something metal that caught the light strangely. "We'll attend tomorrow's meeting," Tae-ho said simply. "We'll make one final attempt at reasonable negotiation." "And if they refuse?" Lee asked. Tae-ho closed the briefcase with a soft click. When he looked up, his eyes were different somehow. Colder. "Then they'll learn something about humans that's not in their database." That night, Choi Min-ho couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the way Tae-ho had looked at his briefcase. The young man had studied Earth's history in school. He knew that humans had not gotten to the stars by being weak or peaceful. But Ambassador Kim Tae-ho seemed so gentle, so reasonable. Surely, he was just a diplomat, nothing more. Choi Min-ho was wrong, and tomorrow the galaxy would find out just how wrong. The second day began with bad news. Park Hee-jin woke up to find angry messages from Earth. The Galactic Council had leaked details of their demands to news networks across the galaxy. Every species now knew that humans were being treated like children. "They're trying to humiliate us," she told Tae-ho over breakfast. "The food tasted like metal and smelled like flowers. Neither human touched it much." "Of course they are," Tae-ho replied calmly. He drank something that looked like coffee, but wasn't. Fear often wears the mask of pride. "Fear?" Choi Min-ho looked confused. "Sir, they have thousands of ships. We have maybe 50 that could fight. What do they have to fear from us?" Tae-ho didn't answer. He just picked up his old briefcase and headed for the door. The council chamber buzzed with excitement when the humans arrived. Every seat was filled. Aliens who had never cared about Earth were now here to watch the show. Some held recording devices. Others placed bets on how quickly the humans would surrender. Tae-ho walked to the center platform again. His steps were the same as yesterday, slow, careful, precise. But today Park Hee-jin noticed something different about the way he moved. Like a cat getting ready to jump. "Humans!" Grixtal's voice boomed through the chamber. "Have you come to accept wisdom? Will you bow to your betters?" "We have considered your offer," Tae-ho said politely. "Unfortunately, Earth cannot accept terms that would leave our world defenseless." Angry sounds erupted from the alien delegates. Some pounded on their desks with whatever they used for hands. Others made loud screeching noises. Zornith stood, up on his 6 legs. "Defenseless? You insects think you can defend yourselves against real civilizations? We hope we never have to find out, Tejo replied. But every species has the right to protect itself. Veltara's black eyes glittered. Rights? You have only the rights we choose to give you. I'm afraid that's not how rights work, Tejo said. His voice stayed calm but got quieter. People had to lean forward to hear him. Rights exist whether you recognize them or not. Enough! Grixtal slammed all four of his fists on his desk. You dare lecture us about rights, you pathetic little creatures from a backward world? The chamber erupted in chaos. Dozens of aliens shouted at once. Some threw things at the platform where Tejo stood. A piece of fruit hit him in the shoulder, but he didn't react. I think, Tejo said, raising his voice just slightly, this meeting has accomplished all it can. We will return to Earth and inform them that diplomatic relations are not possible at this time. He turned to leave. That was when Veltara made her mistake. Stop them, she said into her communicator. Security doors slammed shut around the chamber. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridors as armed guards ran toward them. Red lights started flashing and alarms began to wail. Park Hyojin grabbed Tejo's arm. Sir, they can't do this. We have diplomatic immunity. Yes, Tejo said softly. We do. 8 alien security officers burst through the main doors. They carried energy weapons that hummed with power. Their leader was a Vorthak like Grixtal, but even bigger. His gray skin was covered in scars from old battles. Nobody leaves, the security chief announced. The humans will stay here until they accept our terms. Li Dongwu reached for his sidearm, but Tejo held up a hand. Not yet, he said quietly. Ambassador, Park Hyojin whispered urgently. They're violating every diplomatic protocol in the galaxy. This is an act of war. Tejo set his briefcase down on the floor. Very carefully, very gently. Indeed they are, he replied. Something in his voice made the security chief pause. The alien's small eyes narrowed as he studied the human diplomat more carefully. You will come with us, the security chief said, trying to sound commanding. But now he sounded less sure of himself. No, Tejo said simply. No? The alien laughed, but it didn't sound happy. You have no choice, little human. The security chief reached out to grab Tejo with one massive hand. His fingers were as thick as a human's arm, tipped with claws that could tear through metal. That was his last mistake. Tejo moved. 1 second he was standing still like a polite diplomat. The next second the security chief was on the ground, screaming. His wrist bent at an angle that wrists were not supposed to bend. The other guards stared in shock. Their leader was 3 times bigger than the human, trained in combat since childhood, armed and armored. And he was lying on the floor crying like a baby. Tejo now held the security chief's weapon. None of the guards had seen him take it. Barako, Heijin barely saw it herself. One moment the gun was in the alien's hand. Then it wasn't. Impossible, one guard whispered. Tejo checked the weapon's settings with the skill of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. The gun made 2 soft humming sounds. 2 guards fell down. They were still alive, but they wouldn't be getting up anytime soon. The remaining guards finally remembered they had weapons too. They started to raise them. They were too slow. Tejo moved through them like water flowing around rocks. Every movement was perfect. Nothing was wasted. In 10 seconds, all 8 guards were on the ground. The council chamber was completely silent. Tejo picked up his briefcase. His suit wasn't even wrinkled. He looked like he had just finished a pleasant conversation, not disabled 8 armed soldiers. As I was saying, he told the staring aliens, we will be returning to Earth now. Grixtal's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. No sounds came out. Veltara was the first to recover. What are you? I'm a diplomat, Tejo replied politely. At least I was trying to be. He opened his briefcase. The papers inside rustled as he moved them aside. Underneath was something that made several aliens gasp. It was clearly a weapon, though unlike anything they had ever seen. It looked like it had been built by someone who understood death very well. But before I became a diplomat, Taeho continued, assembling the weapon with smooth, practiced movements, I was something else. Choi Min-ho stared at his ambassador in shock. Sir, who are you? Taeho looked up from his weapon. For just a moment, his diplomatic mask slipped completely. The face underneath was not gentle at all. Someone who hoped never to be needed again. Alarms were screaming throughout the station now. More guards would be coming soon. Hundreds of them, probably. Park Hye-jin was accessing files on her tablet with shaking fingers. Her security clearance was higher than she had ever told anyone. The information she found made her blood turn cold. My God, she whispered. You're him. You're actually him. Who? Choi Min-ho demanded. Who is he? Park Hye-jin looked at the young translator with frightened eyes. Colonel Kim Taeho, former commander of Special Operations Division. They called him the White Death during the Martian uprising. Taeho finished assembling his weapon. It was sleek and deadly, designed for someone who never missed. That was a long time ago, he said quietly. I retired from that life when I became a diplomat. Heavy footsteps thundered in the corridors outside. Dozens of armed aliens were coming. Taeho sighed. I suppose retirement is over. He activated his weapon. The sound it made was like death itself waking up. Attention all vessels, he spoke, into his communicator. This is Ambassador Kim Taeho of the Terran Republic. The Galactic Council has violated diplomatic immunity and committed an act of war against Earth. His voice was still polite, still diplomatic. But now it carried something else, a promise of what was coming. I am authorized to respond accordingly. The first wave of reinforcements reached the chamber doors. They had heavy armor and military-grade weapons. They thought they were hunting a frightened diplomat. They were wrong. They were being hunted by something much worse. And Kim Taeho had just stopped pretending to be human. The first wave of security forces never had a chance. They came through the doors expecting to find a cornered diplomat and his small team. Instead, they found death waiting for them in a neat black suit. Taeho had taken position behind one of the council seats. His strange weapon made almost no sound when it fired, just a soft whisper like wind through grass. But every whisper meant another alien would not be going home to their family. How is he doing this? Choi Min-ho gasped, pressed flat against the floor behind Park Hye-jin. The aliens had better armor, better weapons, and greater numbers, but they moved like soldiers who had never faced a real enemy. They expected their targets to run or hide, or surrender. Taeho did none of these things. He flowed through the chamber like smoke, always where the aliens didn't expect him to be. When they shot at him, he was already gone. When they thought they had him trapped, he appeared behind them. Park Hye-jin watched her tablet screen with growing horror. She had accessed Taeho's real military files, the ones buried under layers of classification codes. 17 confirmed kills in the first Mars battle, she read in a whisper. 43 during the asteroid pirate raids, single-handedly eliminated. An entire rebel command structure on Europa. That's impossible, Choi Min-ho said. He's just one man. He's not just a man, Park Hye-jin replied, scrolling through more files. Look at this. Advanced combat training on 12 different worlds. Expert in 47 types of weapons. Specialist in what they call asymmetric warfare. What does that mean? It means he fights unfairly, Lee Dong-woo said grimly. The security officer had finally drawn his own weapon, but he wasn't shooting at the aliens. He was watching the exits protecting the non-combatants, and he's very good at it. More aliens poured into the chamber. These ones looked different, bigger, with heavier armor and more dangerous weapons. Elite troops from the Galactic Council's personal guard. It didn't matter. Taeho had found the chamber's control panel. His fingers danced across alien interfaces like he had used them his whole life. The lights went out. Emergency lighting cast everything in blood-red shadows. He's using their own systems against them, Park Hye-jin realized. The diplomatic briefings, he wasn't just learning about politics. He was memorizing their technology. In the darkness, the aliens lost their advantage. They had to use lights. to see, which made them perfect targets. Tejo moved through the shadows like he had been born in them. "Impossible!" Grixtal screamed from his elevated seat. "You're just humans. You're supposed to be weak." "We are weak." Tejo's voice came from somewhere in the darkness. Calm, patient, deadly. "That's why we had to learn to be smart." An alien guard appeared next to Grixtal, trying to protect the Vorthak Prime. The guard's weapon charged up with a high whining sound. The whining stopped abruptly. So did the guard. Tejo stepped into the red light near Grixtal's seat. His suit was torn in a few places and there was blue blood on his hands. Alien blood. But he looked like he was just getting started. "You wanted to know what humans are capable of," he said to the terrified Prime. "This is what we become when you threaten what we protect." Veltara was screaming orders into her communicator, calling for more troops, heavier weapons, anything that could stop the human killing machine that had somehow appeared in their secure chamber. "It's not working," she shouted at Grixtal. "Nothing is working. What is he?" Park Hyojin could have answered that question. She had found the deepest files now, the ones that made her hands shake as she read them. "Sir?" she called out to Tejo. "Your team is asking for confirmation. Do you authorize Protocol 7? Tejo paused in his systematic destruction of the Galactic Council's security forces. "What's Protocol 7? Choi Minho whispered. "You don't want to know," Lee Dongwu replied. "Yes," Tejo said simply. "Full authorization. Send the signal." Park Hyojin's fingers flew across her tablet. She sent a coded message that would reach Earth in a few hours, but it would also reach other recipients much sooner. "What did you just do?" Veltara demanded. "I told my friends where I am," Tejo replied, "and that I might need help." The Zephyrian's black eyes widened. "Your friends? Did you think I came alone?" Tejo asked. "Did you think Earth would send one diplomat to meet with the entire Galactic Council without backup?" The truth hit the aliens like a physical blow. If this diplomat was actually a deadly soldier, then what about all the other humans they had met? The traders, the explorers, the cultural exchange students? Every human ship in this system, Park Hyojin said, reading from her tablet. Every human station, every human civilian on every world. They're all getting the signal now. Zornith, who had been hiding behind his chair, suddenly understood. They're all soldiers. All of them. Not all, Tejo corrected, reloading his weapon with movements too fast to follow. Some are scientists, some are engineers. But in times of crisis, every human serves, the station shuddered. Something had hit it from outside, something big. That would be Captain Song Ji-woo, Lee Dongwu said, checking his own communicator. Right on schedule. Who is Captain Song Ji-woo? Grixtal demanded. She's not a captain anymore, Tejo replied. She's Admiral Song Ji-woo now, and she's brought friends. More impacts shook the station. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making everyone stumble except Tejo, who moved like he expected it. How many ships? Veltara whispered. Park Hyojin smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Enough. Choi Min-ho was starting to understand. This was all planned, wasn't it? The diplomatic mission, everything. You knew they would try. Something like this? We hoped they wouldn't, Tejo said honestly. But we prepared for the possibility. He moved toward the main exit, stepping over the bodies of aliens who had learned too late that humans were not what they seemed. Where are you going? Grixtal called after him. To finish this, Tejo replied. Your station has defensive systems. That could threaten our rescue ships. I'm going to shut them down. You'll never reach the control center. There are hundreds of guards between here and there. Tejo paused at the doorway. When he looked back, his diplomat's mask was completely gone. What the aliens saw was something that had haunted enemy nightmares across a dozen worlds. Yes, he said quietly. There are. He disappeared into the corridor. Behind him, emergency alarms wailed throughout the station as the Galactic Council finally realized what they had awakened. The humans hadn't come to beg for membership, They had come to test the aliens to see if peaceful coexistence was possible. The aliens had failed that test. Park Hye-jin helped Choi Min-ho to his feet. "Stay close to me," she told him. "And remember, whatever you see in the next few hours." Ambassador Tae-ho tried to do this peacefully first. "What happens now?" the young translator asked. Lee Dong-woo checked his weapon and headed for the door. "Now the galaxy learns why humans don't start fights. We just finish them." The Galactic Council station had been built to be impregnable. Thick armor, redundant systems, and enough firepower to destroy small fleets. But it had never faced an enemy who understood it as well as its own builders. Tae-ho moved through the corridors like a ghost with deadly purpose. Every step was planned, every turn calculated. He had memorized the station's layout during his diplomatic briefings, but not for the reasons the aliens thought. The first security checkpoint didn't even see him coming. The guards were focused on their scanners, looking for ships attacking. From outside, they didn't expect death to come walking down their own hallways. Tae-ho disabled them quietly and efficiently. No wasted movements, no unnecessary noise. He took their access codes and weapons, then moved deeper into the station. Behind him, Park Hye-jin and the others followed at a safe distance. She had her tablet connected to the station's communication system, monitoring the panic spreading through the alien forces. "Security Teams 7 through 12, no response," she reported quietly to Lee Dong-woo. "He's not even breathing hard," Choi Min-ho observed, watching Tae-ho work. "How is that possible?" "Practice," Lee replied grimly. "A lot of practice." The station's defense systems were controlled from the central command center, deep in the station's core. To reach it, Tae-ho had to pass through 6 more security checkpoints and the heavily defended main corridor. The aliens had learned from their earlier mistakes. They no longer tried to capture him alive. Now they shot first and asked questions later. It still wasn't enough. Tae-ho had found the maintenance shafts. While alien security forces guarded the main routes, he crawled through spaces meant for repair robots. He emerged behind them, above them, beside them, always where they least expected. "Sector 12 is down," an alien commander reported over the radio. "Sector 15 is not responding. What is happening down there?" "It's just one human," another voice replied, but it sounded uncertain. "Then why is half my security force dead?" Tae-ho reached the station's life support center. The alien technicians inside were trying to lock down the systems, prevent him from doing more damage. They were too late. He didn't kill the technicians. He didn't need to. Instead, he used their own equipment to turn the station against its defenders. Life support to alien quarters was reduced to minimum levels. The air became thin and cold. Gravity fluctuated, making it hard for the bulky aliens to move quickly. But the human sections remained comfortable and stable. "He's not just fighting them," Park Hye-jin realized, watching her readings. "He's making it impossible for them to fight back." The station's automated defenses turned on their own security forces. Robot sentries that had been programmed to protect the station now hunted anyone carrying unauthorized weapons. Since the security forces were all armed, they became targets. "This is impossible," Veltara's voice crackled over the communication system. "One human cannot defeat an entire station." "He's not trying to defeat the station," Lee Dong-woo explained to Choi Min-ho. "He's turning it into a weapon against itself." In the main command center, the remaining alien leaders watched their defenses crumble on dozens of screens. Every few minutes, another section went dark. Another security team stopped responding. "Where is he now?" Grixtal demanded. "We don't know," admitted the security chief who had replaced the one Tae-ho had disabled. "Our sensors can't track him. It's like he knows exactly where every scanner is positioned." "Because he does," Zornath said miserably. "He studied our systems for months while pretending to be a simple diplomat." Outside the station, human ships moved into attack positions. They had been hidden in the asteroid field, waiting for the signal. Admiral Song Ji-woo commanded them from her flagship, a vessel that looked small compared to the massive station, but appearances were deceiving. The human ships were built for speed and precision, not impressive size. They struck like Surgical knives targeting specific systems while leaving the rest intact. They wanted the station captured, not destroyed. Station defenses are down to 30%, Park Hee-jin reported, reading from her tablet. Ambassador Tae-ho has neutralized most of their weapon systems. How? Choi Min-ho asked. He was beginning to understand that his quiet ambassador was something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. He's been crawling through their maintenance tunnels, Lee explained, placing charges on critical systems, reprogramming computers, cutting power lines. Classic sabotage work. Tae-ho appeared on one of the command center's security screens. He was standing in front of the main power coupling, looking directly into the camera. "Attention, Galactic Council," he said in his calm, polite voice. "You now have two choices. Surrender immediately and we will treat you according to galactic law. Or continue fighting and face the consequences." Grixtal leaned forward, all four of his fists clenched. "What consequences? You're just one human." Tae-ho smiled. It was not a friendly expression. "I'm just the advance team," he said. He held up a device that made several aliens gasp in recognition. It was a military-grade explosive, powerful enough to destroy the entire power system. "You have 5 minutes to decide." The screen went black. In the command center, panic erupted. Some aliens wanted to evacuate, others demanded they fight to the end. A few suggested trying to negotiate. "We can't negotiate," Beltara said desperately. "He's not a diplomat anymore. He's a weapon pointed at our hearts." "Then what do we do?" Zornith wailed. The answer came from an unexpected source. A junior technician, barely out of training, raised a trembling appendage. "Sir," the young alien said to Grixtal, "I've been monitoring human communications. The ships outside there, they're not just warships." "What do you mean?" "Some of them are carrying recording equipment. Professional grade. They're broadcasting everything that happens here to the entire galaxy." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "They want everyone to see this," Beltara whispered. "They want every species in the galaxy to know what happened here." "Why?" Park Hye-jin answered that question from her position in the corridor, speaking into her own recorder. "So that no one else makes the same mistake," she said clearly. "So that every species knows what happens when you attack Earth's diplomats." The 5 minutes were almost up. Through the station's remaining sensors, they could see Tae-ho preparing to activate his explosive device. "He'll really do it," Grixtal realized. "He'll destroy the entire power grid just to prove a point." "No," Lee Dongwoo corrected, monitoring his own communications. "He'll do it because it's the most efficient way to end this fight with minimum casualties." "Minimum casualties?" Zornith laughed hysterically. "He's killed dozens of our people." "He could have killed thousands," Park Hye-jin replied. "Look at your casualty reports. Most of your people are stunned or injured, not dead. He's been very careful about that." It was true. For all his deadly efficiency, Tae-ho had used lethal force, only when absolutely necessary. Most of the alien security forces were alive, just unable to continue fighting. The timer on Tae-ho's device showed 30 seconds remaining. "Surrender," Beltara said suddenly. "What?" Grixtal turned on her in shock. "Surrender," she repeated, more firmly. "Before he shows the galaxy what humans do to enemies who refuse to quit." The timer showed 15 seconds. 10, 5. "We surrender." Grixtal screamed into his communicator. The timer stopped at 2 seconds. On the screen, Tae-ho nodded politely. "Thank you for making the sensible choice," he said in his diplomatic voice. "Please prepare to be boarded by Admiral Song Ji-woo's forces." The station shuddered again as human ships docked at multiple airlocks. But this time, the impacts were gentle, controlled. "Remember," Tae-ho added, "you chose this path when you decided to attack Earth's diplomatic mission. We offered you peace. You preferred war." His image disappeared from the screen. In the command center, the surviving alien leaders sat in stunned silence. They had commanded the most powerful military station in the galaxy. They had threatened to destroy Earth itself if the humans didn't submit. and they had been defeated by one quiet man with an old briefcase. "What happens now?" Grixtal asked quietly. Outside, human soldiers were securing the station with professional efficiency. They were polite but firm, treating prisoners well but making sure everyone understood who was in control now. Park Hyejin looked at her tablet one final time. Messages were pouring in from across the galaxy. Every major news network was covering the story. Every government was analyzing what had happened. "Now," she said, "the galaxy learns who humans really are." Admiral Song Ji-woo walked into the Galactic Council chamber with the confident stride of someone who had just won a war without firing a shot. She was younger than Taeho, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a uniform that somehow stayed perfectly neat despite commanding a battle fleet. Behind her came a squad of human Marines. They weren't the biggest soldiers in the galaxy, but something about the way they moved made even the largest aliens step back respectfully. The council chamber was a mess. Broken furniture, scorch marks on the walls, and the lingering smell of fear in the air. The surviving alien delegates huddled in their seats like children waiting to be punished. Taeho stood near the central platform, his weapon put away and his diplomatic mask back in place. His suit was dirty and torn, but he looked calm and professional. Like he had just finished a routine meeting. "Ambassador," Admiral Song said with a slight bow, "I apologize for the delay. We came as quickly as we could." "No apology necessary, Admiral," Taeho replied politely. "The situation is now under control." Park Hyejin watched this exchange with growing understanding. The polite words, the formal gestures, this was all theater. A performance for the watching galaxy, because the galaxy was watching. Her communications equipment showed incoming signals from hundreds of worlds. News networks, government officials, military commanders, everyone wanted to see what had happened to the mighty Galactic Council. "Status report," Admiral Song requested. "Station secured with minimal casualties," Lee Dongwoo replied, reading from his tablet. "Alien forces have surrendered. No significant damage to civilian areas. Excellent work." Admiral Song turned to face the cowering alien delegates. "Now then, shall we discuss terms?" Grixtal tried to stand up on shaking legs. "Terms? You attacked our station. This is an act of war." "No," Taeho said quietly. "This is the result of an act of war, an act that you committed when you violated diplomatic immunity." He gestured to Park Hyejin, who activated a holographic display. Video footage filled the air above the chamber, clear recordings of the aliens ordering their security forces to detain the human diplomats. "Galactic law is very specific about diplomatic immunity," Taeho explained in his calm teacher's voice. "Violating it is considered an attack on the diplomat's home nation. Earth had every right to respond with military force." Veltara leaned forward desperately. "But you're just humans. You're supposed to be weak, peaceful. We never thought—" "You never thought," Admiral Song finished coldly. "That was your mistake." She activated her own display. Images of human ships filled the chamber, sleek vessels that looked small compared to alien dreadnoughts, but moved with deadly grace. "Every human trader you've met in the past year was gathering intelligence," she explained. "Every explorer was mapping your defenses. Every cultural exchange student was learning your weaknesses." Choi Min-ho stared at the displays in shock. "All of them? Every human who came to alien space?" "Not all," Taeho admitted. "Some really were just traders and students. But enough of them were intelligence operatives to give us everything we needed." More images appeared. Detailed schematics of alien ships, military installations, government buildings. The humans had been preparing for this possibility for years. "This is impossible," Zornath whispered. "Your species is barely out of its own solar system. How could you know so much about us?" "Because you underestimated us," Admiral Song replied. "You saw our small ships and primitive weapons and decided we were harmless. You never bothered to study what we were actually capable of." Park Hyejin pulled up another file on her tablet. "Human military doctrine emphasizes gathering intelligence before any engagement. We study our potential enemies for years before we ever meet them in battle. Potential enemies? Grixtal sounded hurt. We offered you trade partnerships. You offered us slavery, Tejo corrected. Surrender of our military, acceptance of alien oversight, payment of taxes for the privilege of serving you. Those aren't the terms offered to equals. The truth of that statement hung in the air. Even the alien delegates couldn't deny it. What do you want from us? Veltara asked quietly. Admiral Song and Tejo exchanged a look. They had clearly planned for this moment. Simple, Admiral Song said. Recognition of Earth as an equal partner in galactic affairs, trade agreements based on mutual benefit, not exploitation, and assurance that no Earth diplomat will ever be threatened again. And if we refuse? Grixtal asked, though he already knew the answer. Tejo gestured to the broken security systems around them. Then you'll discover what happens when humans stop being diplomatic. The alien delegates looked around at the evidence of what one human could do when properly motivated. They imagined what an entire human military could accomplish. The imagination was terrifying. We accept your terms, Grixtal said finally. Excellent, Tejo replied, his diplomatic smile returning. I knew we could reach an understanding. Park, Hyjin was already preparing the formal documents, but she kept one eye on her communication displays. The recordings of this confrontation were spreading across the galaxy at light speed. Sir, she said quietly to Tejo, we're receiving messages from 43 different species. Most want to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. And the others? They're asking if Earth is accepting new alliance partners. Admiral Song smiled. It was not entirely pleasant. Fear is an excellent motivator for respect. Choi, Minho was still trying to process everything he had witnessed. Sir, he said to Tejo, were you really going to destroy the power grid? Would you have blown up the entire station? Tejo considered the question carefully. If necessary, yes, but I hoped it wouldn't come to that. Why? What would have happened if the station had been destroyed? Then the galaxy would have learned a different lesson, Admiral Song answered. They would have learned that humans don't just fight wars, we end them. The formal surrender ceremony was brief and professional. Human troops took control of the station's critical systems, but they didn't harm any of the alien personnel. Prisoners were treated well, following the rules of war that Earth had inherited from its own bloody history. Within hours, news of the incident had reached every corner of the galaxy. The story spread like wildfire, how a single human diplomat had defeated the most powerful military station in known space. But the real story was deeper than that. It wasn't about one man's skills or one battle's outcome. It was about what humanity represented. They thought we were weak because we preferred talking to fighting, Tejo explained to a gathering of alien officials later that day. His diplomat's mask was back in place, but everyone could see the steel underneath now. They mistook patience for cowardice, diplomacy for weakness. They forgot that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who don't want to fight. Admiral Song added her own perspective. Every species in this galaxy grew strong by conquering others. You understand strength through domination, but humans grew strong by surviving. We understand strength through adaptation. The implications spread through alien governments like a virus. How many other human civilians were actually soldiers? How many human colonies were really military bases? How much did Earth really know about alien weaknesses? The answer, as several intelligence services would soon discover, was more than they wanted to think about. 3 months later, the Galactic Council formally recognized Earth as an equal member. Trade agreements were signed that actually benefited both sides. And a new rule was added to galactic law. Harming Earth's diplomats was considered an act of war against the entire human military. Kim Tejo returned to his quiet life as an ambassador. He filed reports, attended meetings, and negotiated trade deals. He never raised his voice or lost his temper. But now, when alien officials met with him, they were very, very polite. Because everyone remembered what had happened to the last group, that had mistaken human patience for human weakness. And in the deepest files of every major intelligence agency in the galaxy, a new entry appeared in their threat assessment databases. Species, human. Threat level, extreme. Recommendation, do not engage unless prepared for total war. The notation was written in 47 different languages, but the message was the same in all of them. Don't make the humans angry. You wouldn't like them when they're angry.